Hi, Graham Vincent, violin maker and musician. It's Friday, it's Q&A time, but let's have a very quick look at what else I've been up to. In the workshop at the moment, I've been working on this viola. It's coming on nicely now, really happy with it. I've got to do the sort of the edge work, just round off the inside faces before I fasten before I glue the front or the back onto the ribs. I haven't actually put the bass bar on the front yet, so I mean the next stage basically is to carry on with the work on the front, finish that edge work on the back, fasten the back, glue the back to the ribs, and then have a look at the front as well. So that's pretty much what I'm doing on that one. Making fingerboard. I've made the neck for it. Yeah, so it's coming on quite well. Hopefully next week we should, by the end of next week, we should have a sort of a complete body with the neck on it. And probably I will be doing things like, putting the fingerboard on and so on. So, it should move really quickly from this point onwards. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, so should we adjourn to the office and have a look at some of the questions that are coming? Okay. Right, so I'm back in the office, sitting in front of my computer, and I haven't actually had a good look through the questions yet, so let's just dive straight in and answer them. I've got 2 videos up, so I'm going to look at the questions from the number 158, which was the last violin making Q&A I did, and then also 159, which was the part 3 of the viola one. So let's start with the viola thing, shall we? So, Christopher John King, looking good, coming on nicely. Shame about the bandsaw blade, but at least the motor is still working. There's a story behind that. Chris is a mate of mine, and the bandsaw motor conked out about 6 months ago, and Chris, who is amongst other things, a bit of an electrical whiz, sorted out the motor and got it going again. So. Yeah, so that's the slight in-joke there from Chris. DIY Dark Matter. If I had to guess, I'm going to say it's going to carry very well. This is obviously about the viola. I think there might be some people a little jealous in this person's group of whatever, I don't know where they play, but there will be jealousy all the same. Jealousy is an unhealthy kind of sentiment, isn't it? But no, I know exactly what you mean, and I think we all suffer from instrument jealousy on occasions, don't we? Looks beautiful so far. I love the arches. Thank you very much indeed. They're nice and deep. Yes, well, the whole intention with those arches was to increase the internal volume of the instrument by sort of, making it more, well, bulbous is a bit of an exaggerated word for it, but yeah. And I must admit, I'm enjoying that shape so much. I'm tempted, I think, on the next couple of violins I make to actually just make them a bit more arched than I normally do, just to see how that works out. Because yeah, I'm enjoying that deep arching as well, it has to be said. Yeah. Michelle K5789, one of the few makers I've seen thickness the instrument without drilling loads of holes. I like your approach, although I imagine for a beginner the holes serve as a much needed guideline. That way I imagine it would be scary drilling such a precious piece of timber. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, what Michelle is describing here is when I was thicknessing the back and the front. I mean, a lot of people actually go to the pillar drill and set a sort of a little anvil, little mound at the bottom, much in the same way I was using with my depth marker, and they set the drill in the pillar drill to go sort of shy of that by whatever it might be, and then they just fill the back with loads and loads of holes. I mean, effectively I'm doing exactly the same as that, using that manual sort of thing which leaves little pin pricks everywhere, but when you do it with the pillar drill, you do it all in one go, so you get full depth all the time. But I don't know, I have done that before. I've tried that before. I didn't enjoy it, and I think it's slower. A lot of the choices that I make in violin making are to do with ease and speed, and also just for the sheer enjoyment of it. I don't think using the pillar drill is any faster. And I think also the potential for, technical term, the potential for cock up is larger, because you wouldn't want to drill a hole through the back of the instrument, would you now? But there we go. Yeah, so pros and cons to all of these things. Like I say about all the techniques I use, I'm not saying it's the best way to do it. I'm just saying it's the way I did it this time. And I'm always trying other methods. I enjoy trying different approaches to things. I think it's really useful to have a big armory of different ways that you can tackle the same problem, because with, from one piece of wood to the next, a different technique might be more appropriate. Mick Carr 2744. Hi Graham, I love the deep arches on the viola. Can I ask, how did you get the top and back to 4mm around the edge before you start carving? Everyone seems to like this arching. I must admit I do as well. And I think I've shown this before in a video. I made a sort of, it's like an overhead router on a flat bed on this sort of gantry, and I've set it up on a rise and fall, which is something I cobbled together from a lathe turret control thing. It's sort of wind in and out lathe turret, I do that using that. So basically I sort of bring, bit by bit, I lower the router and just wander around and take it down till it's about 4mm all the way around. It's not a method I'm very happy with. I think there must be a better method. I'm quite happy doing it using a router. I think that's fine. But with this one, I'm sort of taking the timber to the router, and so you have to be alert and be aware of where your fingers are all the time. And it's not necessarily a way I would recommend to other people, and it's one that I keep thinking I must do something different. But that's, you asked the question, and that is the answer. As ever, I'm looking for other ways of doing things, but at the moment, that's how I do it. MJF 1036. Hi Graham, question please. Tell us more about the scraper used at minutes 4 to 6. It looks like an oversized plectrum. Is the tip radius made specifically to fit the desired curve above the purfling? It wasn't made specifically for that, but it works nicely like that. It's a little bit like a French curve in that it's a continuously changing, it's not a radius, it's a continuously changing curve. So I mean, if I wanted a tighter curve there, I just obviously move I'd change the angle of the plectrum, if you like, so that a tighter bit of the curve was what was doing the cutting. But I mean, there's, you can make scrapers any shape or size that you fancy, and it's absolutely valid, and it's important that you do cut them and shape them to do the sort of jobs that you want, really. I must admit, I think that plectrum one, as you describe it, it looks like a fairly, it's almost like an egg shape, but stretched out with quite a pointy, sharp end on it. So I mean, not sharp, but sharper than an egg. You know what I'm trying to say. That's one of the most useful ones. And another one which I find really useful has a curve at one end, and it comes to a point at the other end. That's also really useful. Obviously, I use the good old-fashioned rectangular ones quite a bit, and I also use one which is just like a large oval. Yeah. Monty Latham 739. I really enjoyed that. You make it look so easy. And do you have to sharpen the tiny planes very often? No, they seem to stay pretty sharp, to be honest. I guess I sharpen them probably once for every instrument, really. I think I didn't sharpen them before I started work on the back, but after I'd finished the back, I sharpened them before I did the front. Yeah. Brian Timmons, TX, unfamiliar with the properties of pearwood. I looked it up and it seems it's significantly harder than maple, if I'm understanding this correctly. Do you notice any acoustic differences because of this? It is quite hard, but it's nice to work. I mean, maple is quite a nice wood to work as well. And I think what they've got in common is they're nice and homogeneous. That can be kind of fouled up slightly if you're talking about a really ripply flamed maple. This pearwood is hard, but it's lovely and consistent and easy to work despite its hardness. In terms of sound, I've made one violin using pearwood, and that one sounded rich and mellow and also surprisingly loud. And funnily enough, the person who has that violin is the person who has ordered the viola, and the fact that they have decided to have one in exactly the same wood tells you, I think, everything you need to know about what they feel about the pearwood. So yeah, there we go. Those are all the questions from the 159 making a 15-inch viola part 3. So let's close that and let's open the 158 Q&A number 24. I think we've got 9 comments or fewer than that. Okay, so hi, so Stash Manley 4418. Hi there. I recently saw your video on carving a scroll. I found it quite inspiring. Thank you very much indeed. I would like to try it out. You should. But I want to make a 16.5-inch viola. Where does a person find a body and neck template for such a thing? Can you help? Either way, enjoy the show. I can help. I actually have replied to this already online. I'm doing this 15-inch viola, and then I'm pretty sure I have an order for a 16.5-inch viola after that. So I will be drawing that up and making those plans available. I mean, I will be making the plans for the 15-inch viola available as well, but you'll understand that I want basically to have made an instrument and be happy with them before I sort of, put my name on them, so to speak. So, if I'm putting the plans out there, I want to know they work and make a good sounding instrument. So, yeah, there will be sort of plans for a 15-inch viola like the one I'm making in these videos, and then a 16.5, hopefully, subject to me finalising that order. A further question from Stash Manley 4418. I was watching a documentary about Stradivarius, and the narrator said building the violin was more like following a recipe than a set plan. So why in the 21st century isn't there a set of cookie cutters for the whole violin family? Things are really skewed towards the violin. Yes, there's several things there. First of all, if you want to make a copy of a Stradivarius, then yes, it really is. You can get the detailed plans to follow for everything. Personally, I think everyone should. I mean, I know I'm selling sets of plans to people who want to make violins like mine, but the plans that you're buying from me are sort of plans for my violin. So, I mean, I would hope that you use them as a starting point and create your own violin. And I think the world is a richer place for us all having our own little quirks and doing things our own way. And I think that's a much healthier sort of thing. I mean, if it really was the case that everybody wanted exactly the same violin, then really it all ought to be automated, and I don't think people need be involved, because it would just be churning out exactly the same thing. And where's the fun in that? There's no fun in that for the people playing them or for the people making them, is there? So no, I think I think constant experimentation and change and people trying to chase that elusive sound, it's what keeps all of this interesting for me. So yeah. Anderson Instruments, the Ash violin looks beautiful. That's not really a question, is it? But I'm very grateful for you to for your saying so. Thank you, thank you. DIY Dark Matter. Another question here. Graham Buddy. Well, I got a question for you that I thought about in a while but remembered while you were talking about varnish. Thanks for reminding me. Question. From my understanding, oil varnish is made from boiled linseed oil and amber, or resin. Now, amber, if I'm correct, is resin from a tree, pine, or otherwise that is found on beaches that floats off and so on. See, I don't know about that. You're not thinking of ambergris, are you? Ambergris, or whatever it's called. Which is something completely different, because that is found floating on washed up on beaches and so on. I'm not entirely sure that this. I mean, you see, you mentioned about sort of does salt water change it, etc. I don't recognise and I don't know anything about resin being washed up on beaches, so I can't really comment about that. I'll look into it, but I suspect that might be a misunderstanding somewhere by me or possibly by you, one of the two. Monty Latham 739. Hi Graham, cheers from Kentucky. I was hoping to get you to talk or show how to sharpen gouges. Yeah, I did do a sharpening video, but I didn't really cover gouges very much, did I? So yeah, I will do that. I will do that coming up fairly soon. Helen G2274, is it possible to use yew wood as a violin wood? I think yew has been used in lute making. It has. It's quite hard. It's also quite difficult to get big enough pieces of yew without sort of flaws in them. They often have a lot of included bits of bark and so on. It is a stunning wood, though. It really is. But it's not really one that appeals to me in this use. I think yew is an absolutely beautiful timber, but for me, the idea of a violin in yew isn't something that appeals, and being the one who has to make these things, that probably means I'll never get around to it, just being honest here. But Helen's, as I think you has me. I only ask because it's one of my favourites due to the gorgeous colours running through it. Also walnut, which I suspect may be too knobbly, maybe like a knotted wood. I understand that certain sounds are chosen, certain woods are chosen for their sounds, obviously, but they look amazing if they sounded okay. They make amazing violins. I could just imagine a violin like my old Triumph Dolomite dashboard. Yeah, like I've said many times, basically choose the timber by, it's got to be structurally sound, ideally fairly low density, but that's not always important. And the most important thing for me is it's got to be ringy. When you hold it up and tap it, it's got to resonate. It's got to sound like a bit of a xylophone. If it doesn't, you're making life really difficult for yourself, and you probably will not get a decent sound out of the instrument. And then last but not least, which is the one sort of driving this question, you've got to like the wood, because as I've always said, one of the most important things about a musical instrument, it's got to sound great, it's got to be easy to play, but you've got to love it. You've got to want to pick it up and play it, because if you don't like the look of it, you won't use it. HZ371, Kevin Lee Luthier channel has a video on how to mix French varnish polish that the subscriber might enjoy. Yes, indeed. Might be worth a look. You never know. I suspect that looks like it's the last question. I don't think I've got much else to add. I've got my radio program, which I do once a month, which is a sort of folk fiddle show, is coming up, and forgive me, but I will put a link to that in the description. Well, it won't be a link to the show. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a link to an event. You click on that, and if you choose to, you can add it to your calendar, and then you'll get a reminder that the show's on, because otherwise I know what it's like. You if I put a link for everyone, then it's me trying to remember to do things in 2 or 3 days time is useless. I need a reminder, so I'm doing that for you, hopefully. So there we go. That's it from me. There will be a couple of other videos coming up. I'm trying to do just a little short every now and then as well. But anyway, keep in touch. Any questions or anything, put them in the comments on this one, and I will attend to them next week. Okay, cheers. Look after yourselves, folks. Bye.